Imagine a room full of kids, just buzzing with excitement for a TV audition in Mumbai. Now, imagine that room suddenly turning into a prison. Well, on October 30th, 2025, that's exactly what happened. A day that started with so much hope just completely spiraled into a hostage crisis that had the entire nation watching. And it was all orchestrated by one man. So let's unpack how this could possibly happen and, more importantly, why.
Here's the thing. The man at the center of all this wasn't some hardened criminal. He was Rohit Arya, a teacher and a media professional who had actually organized the auditions himself. I mean, he was supposed to be their mentor, not their captor. And that right there is the central mystery we're going to get into. Why on earth would a teacher take his own students hostage?
So let's set the scene. It's RA's studio, final day of auditions. The place is filled with kids from all over the state, and their parents are all waiting outside, just full of hope. It's a picture of perfect, happy normalcy right before the nightmare begins.
And then, in a single moment, the whole day just flips. At 1 p.m., the audition becomes a trap. Rohit Arya locks the doors and declares everyone inside hostage. It only takes about 45 minutes for the parents' worry to turn into absolute terror when they hear crying from inside. They call the police, and that's what kicks off this incredibly tense standoff that would go on for the next 3.5 hours.
19! That's how many people were trapped in there. But what's really, truly chilling is that 17 of them were children. Just think about that. Scared, confused kids completely at his mercy.
And his preparation, it was just terrifyingly meticulous. He reportedly had flammable chemicals sprayed on the floor. He had a gas lighter in his hand. And get this, he'd even rigged the studio with motion sensors that were linked to his phone, like an early warning system against any police raid. He had all the tools he needed to create an absolute catastrophe.
He didn't just make these threats to the police behind closed doors. Oh no, he broadcast them to the entire world. From inside that studio, he recorded and posted a video with a message that was just bone-chillingly clear. The slightest wrong move from your end will trigger me to set fire to this place, killing all of us. Suddenly, the stakes were public, and they were impossibly high.
Okay, so now you've got police swarming the scene, you've got this video going viral, the standoff had begun. But the demands Rohit Arya started making were, well, they were anything but typical, and that just made the whole mystery even deeper.
This was the puzzle facing the negotiators. You have a man threatening mass murder, and he's broadcasting it live. So what was his endgame? Was this about money? Was it some political statement? Well, the truth turned out to be far more personal and, honestly, a lot stranger.
His demands just defied every expectation. First off, he made it really clear he wasn't a terrorist and he didn't want any money. In fact, he actually called his demands simple, moral, and ethical. All he wanted, he said, was a conversation. He wanted to speak to one specific person, a former education minister named Deepak Keskar, and he just wanted answers to his questions.
So, to even begin to understand these bizarre demands, we have to look at the man himself. And when you start digging into Rohit Arya's background, the story gets even more complex and full of contradictions.
I mean, this was not the profile of a typical hostage taker. Rohit Arya was highly educated, a graduate of some really prestigious schools. He owned his own media company that, and this is just a cruel twist of irony, specialized in making videos about social causes for children. By all appearances, he was a successful professional who was dedicated to helping kids, not hurting them.
But here it is. This is the biggest twist in the whole story. Rohit Arya wasn't some outsider protesting the system. He was an insider. He had worked directly with top government officials, even the chief minister of Maharashtra. He wasn't fighting the establishment. In a way, he was part of it.
So how did a government collaborator with a profile like this end up in such a desperate, terrible situation? Well, the entire conflict really boils down to one specific government project that he was deeply, deeply involved in.
That project was called the Cleanliness Monitor Initiative. It was actually Arya's own concept, created for the government's massive Clean India campaign. And he wasn't just some contractor, he was the project director, working hand in hand with the education ministry on this thing.
This act of desperation, it didn't just come out of nowhere. For months, he had been trying to get anyone to listen. He protested outside the minister's home, not once but multiple times. He even went on a hunger strike that was so serious it landed him in the hospital. In his mind, it seems, every single door had been shut.
He felt like this was his only option left.
So, this brings us right to the heart of the dispute. It was a financial conflict where both Rohit Arya and the government had completely different versions of what happened. Let's break down what each side was claiming.
At its core, the conflict was all about money and procedure. On one side, you have Arya, who claimed the government owed him 20 million rupees for his work and that they were just completely ignoring his pleas for payment. But the government side of the story was totally different. They alleged he had undocumented costs in his budget and, more seriously, that he was collecting unauthorized fees directly from schools. They said they told him to return that money and resubmit his proposal, but that he just never did. So after hours of tense negotiations that were really going nowhere, the police made their move. The quick response team breached the studio through a bathroom window. Now, the official police account says that as they entered, Arya fired an air gun at them. An officer responded with a single shot. Rohit Arya was pronounced dead at the hospital. And, miraculously, all 19 hostages were rescued, completely unharmed.
The immediate crisis was over, but the story? Oh, it was not. Rohit Arya's death meant his side of the story could never really be fully told, and it left behind this wake of really troubling and unanswered questions.
So what we're left with is this tangle of contradictions. Was this a failure of bureaucracy? A system that just ignored a man's pleas until it was way too late? Or was Arya the one in the wrong, failing to follow the rules? Was he mentally unstable, like the police suggested? Or was he a calm and composed man who was just pushed past his breaking point, like his family insisted? And of course, the biggest question of all, could any of this have been prevented?
Ultimately, the story of Rohit Arya forces all of us to confront a really difficult question. How do we see him? As a desperate man broken by a bureaucratic nightmare? Or as a criminal who, no matter what his reasons were, endangered the lives of 17 children and crossed a line that can never be forgiven? That right there, that is the unresolved legacy of the Mumbai Hostage Crisis.